Okay, great. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. And this conversation will last just about 15 minutes, maybe, a little bit longer. So I give an intro. And as I said, it's being recorded. It will be uploaded to Facebook and to our website and to all those different places where people are looking at them. And also, we have a link in our chat as to where all the candidate guides are being posted. And so I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to get started, and I'm going to do a little brief bio. I'm going to give you an opportunity to talk, about yourself, ask you a couple questions, and then I'm going to open it up to the group to ask you, other specific questions. And so that's kind of how the lay of the land goes. So just for everyone on the, on here and who's going to be listening, I just want to read. So Jacqui, you grew up in Red Hook in a union household. And I love the fact how you talk about, spending time on the Brooklyn waterfront. I have images of you eating the key lime pie. You are a lifelong community activist and organizer. And Jacqui says that it's her time on the waterfront and seeing her home being neglected and disinvested for so long that it led to your climate activism and to help start the Green School Alliances. You've been a healthcare organizer for several years, working to expand Medicaid and Medicare in Brooklyn with the NYCHA Red Hook Senior Center. Early on in COVID-19, you started the mutual aid program of Red Hook Relief. Well, you started Red Hook Relief that kind of evolved into a mutual aid organization and distributing food, water, PPEs, both in Red Hook and across parts of South Brooklyn. You are Vice President of Communications at Lambda Independent Democrats, a Brooklyn Democratic County Committee member, and a New York City PARD Super Steward, which I don't know what that is, but it sounds absolutely excellent. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about it. So, I like to start off just with a general question, which is kind of a broad, like, with your community activism and all your work, like what has brought you to the decision to run for, city, council member? It's a big step and a lot of responsibility. So what went behind that decision?
Yeah, well, first, thank you all so much for having me, of course. I'm very glad to be here. Your club does amazing things within Central and South Brooklyn. So again, thank you. The thing that really pushed me to run for city council is, like you mentioned, I have seen just the utter neglect and disinvestment in our Southern Brooklyn community for years, for my whole life. And this pandemic really tipped it over the edge. To see our neighbors suffering, having human rights violations with no heat, no gas, no water, and unemployed and housing. Our city's in a crisis mode. And I have been on the front lines of activism my whole life. I've been protesting, I've been organizing, and I'm ready to organize the fight into City Hall this time and actually get real legislation, lasting legislation passed to help our communities and to help especially those disenfranchised by the system.
Okay. All right. So people are going to ask you about, specific issues. It always, people, will do that. I like to kind of focus a little bit on your process and, moving from being an advocate on the front lines in the community to working within the city council. How do you see that being different? And, how do you go about building coalitions that can actually allow you to move your big visions forward?
Yeah, so that's also a great question. I think that what you just mentioned, coalition building, is key to be a city councilor and a legislator, especially in a city as big as New York City and diverse as New York City. We have a lot of different types of people, we have a lot of languages spoken, we have a lot of different stakeholders in the city, and we need to work together. And I think that that really brings, and the correct person for that job is a true organizer who has done coalition building, has done community building in their work, right? So I think that getting things done also requires I believe, a more progressive city council, um, uh, all of everyone on the city council, all of the city council is more progressive slate. And I think that this, hopefully in 2021, we're going to do that by so many people are running, so many people are up for reelection. So that's one solution to getting things passed and getting things actually done. But as we see for years in the city council, coalition building with not only other city councilors, but also people in the community, different community organizations, different community leaders. This is work that I've done organizing Medicare and Medicaid for the past 4 years with senior centers, and work that I do every day with Red Hook Relief. You know, there's a aspect of trust in every community, and I believe that the government should also have that aspect of trust and transparency. In order to do the best job as an elected official, you're going to need the trust of the community, and you're going to need the community's help to push things forward. I hope that answered your question.
It did. Okay, thanks for that. I, read with particular interest your ideas about engaging the community in violence prevention.
Mhm.
Certainly, with the whole movement of defunding the police, shifting funds, but there's certainly a role that community residents can play. And certainly in your community, there's been, with ICE, with other issues, Black people, people of color. Could you talk a little bit about how you see empowering people to play a role in this kind of violence prevention? I feel like everywhere I'm turning now, there's another act of violence that I haven't really seen, recently in the past, time. And so your ideas about that in your community.
Yeah. Um, Another good question, Bonnie. Um, for In order for us to move forward with a better criminal justice system, it's going to take a lot more than the normal word of reform, like we think. You know, it's going to take layers and it's going to take different steps. One of these steps, I believe, is getting the community involved and trainings for people to learn different de escalation tactics. Obviously, as we've seen throughout our whole existence, and especially throughout this summer with all of the newfound Black Lives Matter activists that we have, um, a lot of people's first reaction is when they see something to call 911, to call the police, or to call 311, which usually sends in the police as well. So if you see a certain situation, and if you were trained to know either who to call or maybe to go help that person yourself, right now, actually, this is the perfect example. We're in a big snowstorm across the country. Actually, we've been seeing crazy weather emergencies. For our houseless New Yorkers, if you see someone, what are you exactly supposed to do? I think that there's a lot of hesitation in everyday neighbors when they see something, they're not quite sure what to do. So that might instill a panic of like, the police will know what to do, because that technically is their job, right? To take care of New Yorkers. Unfortunately, they don't do that job anymore. They usually respond with violence. Unfortunately, a lot of times that can lead to death. Um, and we need to take several steps in order to change our criminal justice system in the city. If I was able to know what to do, if I saw a houseless neighbor in the snow, if I knew exactly where to get them help, if I knew what kind of food to get them, what kind of blanket, I would be prepared to help that individual and not just call the police. Again, this also includes different reforms to the NYPD themselves. Like, this isn't really your question, but we're going to need to do more than just train community members. We're going to need to defund their budget that's bloated, that's used on a lot of things that we don't need, unnecessary tools, and honestly, militarization in some cases. And we're going to need to use that money to invest in social workers and de-escalators and different trainings and different programs. So that reallocation of funds is really going to help us in this community-based safety model. Another idea for community-based safety that I have that we actually borrow from other parts of the country is centers, transformative justice centers. Now, it's been raised in the past to build new jails around the city. I am not for the new jails policy, but instead we need transformative justice centers that have these social workers in there, that have these crisis responders and de-escalators, teachers, things that people know where to go, either physically, on the phone, on Zoom, probably for the next couple of years. Like, people know who to go, who to contact. And I do believe that communities already, especially in Red Hook and Sunset Park, we do have a lot of great organizations doing this kind of work already, but it's all a matter of funding these organizations, investing in them, making sure that we have more of them. I think I'm going off. So,
okay, great. Thanks for that.
yeah.
So I'm going to open it up to questions from the group. So if you want to raise your hand, Sarah, I see that you're raising your hand. So go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Thank you again for joining us. I was excited in your questionnaire that you mentioned supporting a single payer health plan.
Mhm.
I was wondering if that would mean you would support the New York Health Act bill, and if so, if you would sign a pledge to support it.
Yes, Sarah, thanks for your question, and thanks for your work in healthcare. I am definitely for the New York Health Act, and I believe that I signed something before, but if you want to send it over to me, I will 100% sign it again or anew.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Sarah, did you post a link? Can you post a link in the chat for it, or will you send it?
I'm going to post it in the link momentarily.
Fantastic. Okay.
Thank you, Sarah.
Okay. Anybody have other questions that they want to ask?
I could ask a campaign question if you don't mind.
Sure.
I was just wondering if you could address kind of the fundraising and disparities between yourself and some of the other candidates, and how you're going to overcome any issues with regards to that.
Yes. So I am very proud of our campaign. We take small donations from community members, especially right now during the pandemic. It's just not a good time to be asking anyone for money when a lot of our New Yorkers are without a job and are struggling to pay rent every day. So we have been asking everyone for a maximum of $10 donations, which I'm very, very proud of. We have qualified for matching funds, and that was our first fundraising deadline, and it was our first filing. So to qualify for that on the first time, I thought was amazing. We have over 240, I believe was last time I checked, in-district donations, which is also amazing and I'm very proud of. So in total, we've raised over $50,000 last time I checked as well. And yeah, we have a bunch of volunteers as well. We have over 42 volunteers from the community, which is amazing, on our volunteer list. And this is a really true grassroots campaign, and I want to make sure that it's kept that way, especially now more than ever. We need grassroots.
Great. Thanks. Other people with questions? Oh, Jess? I think I muted you, so because we could hear some background noise. So
yeah, sorry, my kids are in the room, so and really
okay.
we're doing all the after dinner things that people with children do,
Yeah.
namely playing video games.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Hey, Jackie, I'm Jess Byrne. I represent the Community Education Council in School District 22, which is neighboring where you represent, but not in your district. So I just want to ask you an education question. I'm trying to think of which one. So what I love about Sunset Park is that it spans a couple of different school districts and kind of a very diverse group of students and families. And so I'm wondering, with the announcement today about the new regulations or new admissions policies for gifted and talented, how do you think that will affect your district and the families in your district, and how would you like to see it modified?
Yes. Well, thank you so much for your question, Jess. I am very keen on making sure that there are no barriers to any student. Like you mentioned, District 38 has a very, very diverse set of students and set of schools. We need to ensure that every child does have a equal education experience across the board. I'm fully for funding public schools and funding educational programs, especially access to resources. Admissions tests historically have been very segregative of students and biased. And I believe that it's past time that we take actual action to desegregate our schools and to make sure that every student has equal opportunity in each school with their counterparts, or with their neighboring students, with their co-students. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of other issues I believe also we need to be working on with education. I appreciate your guys' education question in the questionnaire. And yeah, like you said, Jess, we do have several different types of students in public schools in District 38, and we cannot have any barriers to any child to get into the school of their choice or the school that's most near and convenient to them, especially when we're trying to move out of this pandemic.
Okay. Any other questions? I have a question, another question, and it may be something that other people are talking about, but I have not seen it talked about. As you know, you mentioned it several times in your questionnaire about the municipalization of properties
Mm-hmm.
as a method of kind of countering this kind of, out of control development.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I mean, personally, I just don't know. Is this something that is, seriously being considered? And, is that something that could be done also to kind of perhaps address issues of houselessness or, what are other possibilities that you could see that issue kind of that action addressing in the city?
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Bonnie. This is something that I don't see a lot of people talking about either. And this is something that we need to talk about right now more than ever. There's so much more that the city can be doing for housing. For every one New Yorker, there's 6 empty homes right now, which is wild and mind-blowing and honestly horrible. We have hundreds and thousands of hotels, residency buildings, different types of buildings that are empty. And we need to make sure that we do produce legislation and push that through, and also just get noise around the fact that we are able to seize the government is able to seize these properties and use them for homeless, houseless individuals. New York City has no lack of buildings, right? New York City is not lacking in housing. It's all about affordability, and it's all about utilizing our spaces for our New Yorkers. it's snowing outside for the millionth time I'm going to mention today, and it's freezing, and it's not safe to be out in public when the COVID-19 pandemic is among us. We need to make sure that all of our New Yorkers are housed. They actually have a similar model to this in London and Barcelona. I believe more cities as well. I'm going to have to look into that more. But this is being done in large cities like that. This can be done in New York City. We need to also make sure that we put protections for tenants in, because we can't have anyone be evicted right now. There's nowhere to go. Families can't leave and go stay with family either right now. We need to make sure that we protect the families that are in their houses, and we need to make sure that we utilize all of these empty homes for families without a home. It's mind-blowing. And I believe that we need fierce advocates and fierce fighters who truly put people over profit. And honestly, that's not how it is right now. I think that a lot of legislators and government officials now are a little bit scared, that's what it seems like to me, to stand up for people instead of profit. And we need someone to stand up to these corporations and to stand up to these developers and stand up to whoever it may be, the governor, the federal government, whoever. And I know that I'm that kind of fighter and I'm that kind of organizer.
Okay, great. All right. So one last question, because we're right at time. Does anybody else have a question? Okay, so as I said, we're going to post all this stuff. People have access. They can go look at it. The group is going to meet. We're going to do a ranked choice voting, determine who we want to endorse, and we will let everyone know. And just thank you so much for joining us this evening and taking the time to share your platform with us.
Yes, thank you as well so much. Thank you, everyone.
Right.
I'm very honored to be here at your club's meeting. It's very important to me that we work for working people, that we work in our big district that has working families, public housing residents, union workers, students, activists, the alike. So it's time to put people first, finally.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. All right, everybody, take care. Stay warm, stay healthy, stay
Thank you
safe.
so much.
All
Have a
right.
good
Thank
night.
you.
Bye.
So have a good one, everyone.